So good morning, everybody, and this is our first installment for this year's edition of Jews and the News. A way of titling this session, which is a Jewish perspective on events that are current events. And I thought, due to the devastation of Hurricane Ian in Florida last week, that we could focus on climate change today. So I've been on vacation with the family in the Fort Myers area a few times. So looking at the coverage, both pictures and video of that area, it's just unbelievable, the devastation from this Category 4 hurricane when it made landfall, and the diagonal path it made, essentially following Route 4, which connects Jacksonville and Tampa, kind of paralleling that diagonal route, and the path of destruction it made over Florida, just really devastating. And it's going to take years and years for the area to be rebuilt. There's the islands of Sanibel and Captiva that are right off the coast of Fort Myers. There's if anybody's been to that area, you know that there's a road, kind of a causeway and a bridge that connects from Fort Myers to those islands, and the bridge, that road collapsed, and it's unusable. So anybody who lives in Sanibel and Captiva, the only way that they can get onto the mainland is by boat, and a lot of the boats were destroyed in the storm. So it's because of Hurricane Ian and other dramatic climactic events that I just wanted to talk a little bit from a Jewish perspective, what we're supposed to do about this. How do we respond to this? What is our perspective on climate change? So first off, I will say unequivocally that I and most of the rabbis I affiliate with understand that there is climate change happening in the world, and that the rise in the average temperature, average global temperature, the amount of melting taking place in the polar ice caps, leading to the rising of sea level. It's quite, and the erosion of the ozone layer. It's certainly due to human causes. Ever since the Industrial Revolution a couple of hundred years ago, we've been devastating the earth, and we haven't recognized. Well, let me see. Not enough has gone to the recognition of our role in the erosion or the continued devastation to our earth to make any significant change yet. The fact that President Biden signed legislation that will encourage the growth of infrastructure for electric charging stations, to encourage the production of electric vehicles. That's something, but to sign on, we need to sign on to a global treaty about reduction of pollution, and I'm not sure we have signed on to that. We might have signed on to that, and a previous president might have taken us out of that. I'm not sure we're back in yet. It's the Paris Treaty. There are countries, India, China, Russia, that are major consumers of fossil fuels and major contributors to pollution in the world, that have not done and don't intend to do much about changing their habits. So that's enough about politics about that, but it is clear to me, it is clear to most rabbis that humanity has a role to play in what's happening to the climate, and that global warming is a real issue, climate change is a real issue, and it is a Jewish imperative to try to do something. So the perspective on this comes directly from the book of Genesis. That's what we find in the book of Genesis is the basis for our understanding our relationship to the world around us. So in Genesis 1, on the sixth day of creation, God commands humanity, Pru u'arvu u'mil'u et ha'aretz, be fruitful and be fertile and increase, fill the earth. And then the next phrase, u'mil'u et ha'aretz v'chivshuha u'radu b'dgat hayam, etc., etc. So if I were to translate the word literally, it'd be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, and conquer it. That's what the word kivshuha means. Eitz Chaim translates it as master it. So it's not as bold a statement or a translation as conquer the world. So really, kivshuha, it does mean to conquer it, and then to rule, uradu, bidgat hayam, rule over the fish of the sea and all other creation. Okay, so it seems from chapter 1, verse 28, that God is giving us the right to not only be to rule over the world, but to conquer the world. And therefore, so wait, before I do the therefore, the traditional understanding of the Torah, of course, is that it is God's word. So throughout human history then, until modern times, and by modern times, I mean maybe 20, 30 years ago, the accepted Western idea of our role in relationship to the world is this verse, that we have the right to take advantage of all the resources that the world has for us to have as varied and multifaceted a society as possible. Okay, so it is clear to me that the interpretation of verse 1 of chapter 1, verse 28 in Genesis is giving carte blanche to humanity to take advantage of all of the global resources at our disposal. Because it says we have the right to fill the earth and conquer it. Okay, so the idea that we need to take care of the earth responsibly does not appear until later in the Torah. Okay, so if we only had chapter 1, verse 28, then we would have the right to strip the Amazon rainforest, to cut it down and use all the trees. We would have the right to do strip mining in Africa for uranium, for chrome, for lithium, etc. We could have the right to mine all the coal, gold, and silver out of the mountains without any regard to the effect that it would have on the environment. And even further, we would have the right to use human technology like nuclear energy, understanding, that back in the 30s and the 40s, when nuclear fission was discovered, and not only that it could be used, that it could be weaponized, but it could be used for energy. Well, nuclear reactors, we see the problem, the challenge, and the potential devastation that the largest nuclear reactor in Europe, in Ukraine, and now in a war zone, and also what happened, 20, 30 years ago in Chernobyl, the danger to nuclear, that nuclear energy could possibly pose without proper safeguards. Okay, so if we only had Genesis chapter 1, verse 28, then what we have is the right to use any technology at our disposal that we create, that we innovate, and any resources that are out there in the world to our advantage. And to heck with whatever kind of impact those things might have on the environment. Because the verse says we have the right to conquer the world and use it. Okay, now, however, chapter 1, verse 28 isn't the only verse that impacts our understanding of our relationship to the world around us. So we have chapter 6, verses 5 to 7, in which God sees what has happened in the world since God created the world and God created humanity, and says, Vayar Adonai ki rabba ra'ata adam ba'aretz, v'chol yetzer machshavot libo, rak ra kol hayom. Which means, if I translate literally, God saw how great the evil of humanity is in the land, and that all of the thoughtful intention of humanity's mind is only evil all the time. So I would understand this, not just in that context about how humanity has become sinful and evil beyond repair, which is why God saves Noah and his family and destroys all of humanity with the flood. But it's even more than that. We can understand it as the humanity has been using its abilities, all of its abilities, in the wrong way. So I would argue that we could see this verse as a comment on chapter 1, verse 28, that we're not supposed to wantonly conquer the earth and rule over it. we're supposed to do it with care and responsibility. That we shouldn't be evil in our intention, right? So, in other words, we shouldn't be stripping the Amazon rainforest bare because we recognize the dramatic event, the dramatic consequence that has to the environment, not just to Brazil itself and to the land and the people who are working the land, and the ultimate cycle of life that is required of the forest, but also the impact it has on the ozone layer. Take out all those trees, there's no more oxygen in the, not as much oxygen as the atmosphere requires, and it's too much carbon dioxide. And I'm not a scientist, but you know what I'm saying. Or strip mining and not understanding the awful impact that has on the environment as well, et cetera, et cetera. So I would argue that chapter 6, verses 5 to 7 are a comment on how humanity has used global resources and used technology that it invents in an evil way as opposed to a responsible way. That would be my argument for how we can see one root of our response to climate change and being partners with God in caring for the world. I see chapter 6, verses 5 to 7 as one comment on that. And two other sources in the Torah could also teach us about this. One is, we're told in the book of Numbers that when we go to war against our enemy, and understanding military tactics in ancient times, right? No such thing as drones and fighter jets doing our fight for us, but rather, it's man against man, and using whatever tools they can make in order to do battle. One element of going to war against another nation is to lay siege. And in order to lay siege, you need to build a wall around the city or town or village that you're laying siege to. And you would use stones or trees in order to build that wall to keep the people in and to starve them into submission. So it says in the book of Numbers that you're not supposed to cut down fruit trees in order to do that, because you can only use non-fruit bearing trees in that process, and therefore teaches us that people need to eat, and we're not supposed to destroy usable nature for this evil intention of going to war, even if it's a retaliatory war, right? Not an offensive war, but you've been attacked and now you're going on the and now you're defending yourself and then going on the offensive. Even for something like that, you're not supposed to cut down fruit trees to do that. So here's another hint that we can't just wantonly use what's out there in nature for our purpose all the time. We have to pick and choose what we're using. And the final source I want to share with you about this is the commandment for the land of Israel, that we're supposed to let the land lie fallow every 7th year. That the land deserves Shabbos also, right? Human beings need every seventh day of the week to rest, recharge our batteries spiritually, physically and spiritually. So too the land of Israel is holy, and it too deserves a year of rest. And so the point in the Torah is just from a spiritual perspective, but all agronomists understand how necessary it is for land to rest from farming, or at least crops to change, to be rotated on land, because otherwise you'll just starve the land of its natural chemicals and resources. By letting it lay fallow, the earth replenishes itself. So all these ideas, I think, teach us pretty clearly that we need to partner with God in caring for the earth, and that we need to reinterpret what chapter 1, verse 28 is teaching us. Yes, we have the right in the food chain as being the most, at the top of the food chain, to take advantage, or not to take advantage, but to use resources around us. It's just the natural order of the food chain. The lower on the food chain you are, the more likely you're going to be eaten by the higher up in the food chain. But everything in the food chain has its place in the order of things, in how the world works. And if one segment of the food chain oversteps its bounds, then everything gets whacked out of order, right? So that, stripping the Amazon rainforest means that we are getting rid of the habitat of countless species. And without those species, then other elements of the food chain cannot exist properly. And we know this just from what's happening in America with something as innocuous as bees and bats. We don't know how important bees and bats are to the food chain, but also to our environment, until something drastically goes wrong, and bats are dying of some kind of sickness, and bees as well. And without proper pollination that bees and bats provide, the nature can't grow properly. So just one example of how humanity has taken advantage without understanding the impact that taking advantage has had. And so we need to be aware of what we are doing to the world around us, and we need to advocate to ensure that alternatives to energy and other industrial needs are considered. And so, yeah, it might sound like that this is a political statement that I'm making, that I'm a bleeding heart liberal from the Democratic Party. But when it comes to environmental issues, I think it's quite clear that Judaism teaches us that we need to be advocates for the world. We need to be, just as we need to be advocates for human beings who are poor and are disadvantaged and displaced, that is a Jewish imperative. So too we need to speak up for nature that is poor and displaced and being taken advantage of, because all of it and not just human beings, but all of the world around us is created by God, and all reflects God. And so when we use nature wisely, then we are seeing the holiness of nature and seeing how beautiful it can be when we work in partnership with nature. But when we abuse nature, then we are closing our eyes to the sanctity of nature. We're closing our eyes to seeing God's reflection in nature. And that it goes against what we're supposed to do. So quite clearly then, to me, climate change is a Jewish crisis that needs to be addressed. And we need to work with environmental organizations as part of our imperative for Tikkun Olam, for making the world a better place. So like I said, just as caring for other people as part of Tikkun Olam, caring for nature and the world around us is part of Tikkun Olam too. And I just want to throw out a plug here for our Social Action Committee. So we have a climate subcommittee of the Social Action Committee, headed by Lori Dubrow, and she has organized an event that will take place on Zoom on Thursday evening, October 20th. So just over 2 weeks from now, there'll be an event on Zoom at 7 p.m. that evening. It's on the Shul calendar already. If you go on the Shul calendar on the website, you'll see the description there. So Joel Novi, who is Jewish and is the director of Interfaith Power and Light, which is a local environmental organization, is going to speak about the Jewish response to climate change. So she'll say some of the things that I just said, but then she'll give action items of what her organization does and what we can do to make a positive impact and start making change for better in the world around us. You know, I've been considering putting solar panels on my roof. I've only been thinking about it. I don't know how much it costs. I don't know if there are grants out there so that you don't have to spend any money to put solar panels on your roof, but anything to reduce our carbon footprint, I think is something that we need to consider. You know, and it is a shame that the hybrid vehicles and the all-electric vehicles tend to be more expensive than the gas-powered vehicles. Now, sometimes there is a tax credit for more environmentally friendly vehicles, but that's something also to consider. And so Joel Novi, I'm sure, will come up with some action items that we consider easy things that we can do, that we can, one person at a time, restore the world to a better place. So any thoughts or comments about this? So to me, it seems it's pretty straightforward. I don't think there's anything that controversial or political in what I said, and I think it's all part and parcel of what it means to be a responsible human being in the world around us. So with that, then I want to wish everybody a good day, a Gemar Chatima Tova. May we be sealed for good in the book of life, sealed with blessing and health for the coming year. Have a good rest of the day, everybody.